Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Tech Fails, the channel where we dig up the dustiest skeletons from the history of innovation. We're talking about the blunders, the bombs, and the epic technology scandals that left craters in the financial world, and maybe, just maybe, changed the future in a way nobody expected. Today, we're not talking about some obscure startup that ran out of venture capital. Oh no. We're talking about the giant, the behemoth, the company that brought you the iPhone. We're talking about Apple. And the failure we're dissecting is an early, expensive, and famously clunky device, the Apple Newton. It was meant to revolutionize computing. It was hailed as a glimpse into the future. Instead, it became a punchline. This isn't just a story about a failed product. It's a masterclass in how ambition, poor timing, and a massive dose of overpromising can lead to a historical technical disaster. Get ready, because we're diving into the colossal misstep that was the Apple Newton. To understand the Newton, you have to understand the era it came from. The late 80 seconds and early 90 seconds were a wild time in computing. The desktop PC was established, but everyone was dreaming of the next big thing. That next big thing was portability. The idea for the Newton, spearheaded by the legendary John Sculley, was simple but audacious. He wanted to put the power of a computer in your pocket, not a calculator, not a simple organizer. Sculley envisioned a true personal digital assistant, or PDA. The code name for the project was Philosopher, which tells you everything about the scale of their ambition. They saw it as an extension of the mind, a device that would fundamentally change how you organized your life. The original John Sculley, ironically, also famously pushed Steve Jobs out of Apple, setting up this period of bold experimentation. The technical specifications for the time were genuinely impressive. The device ran on the ARM 610 processor, a chip architecture that, funnily enough, is what powers almost all of our modern smartphones today. This is a true moment of historical irony. The hardware featured a large, pressure-sensitive display. It was all run by an innovative, or so they thought, operating system called Newton OS. It was a massive undertaking for Apple at the time. The first iteration of the Newton, the MessagePad 100, hit the shelves in August 1993. It had a distinctly, asterisk chunky times look to it. It was a gray, wedge-shaped brick that was surprisingly large. It required 4 AAA batteries just to power it, which was a hassle. It was, in short, clunky. The device was supposed to handle all your basic organizational needs. It could manage contacts, calendars, notes, and even had a fax capability. It truly aimed to be a portable office. But the one feature Apple pinned all their hopes and marketing dollars on was handwriting recognition. This was supposed to be the killer app, the magic trick that was supposed to convince the world that the desktop PC was obsolete. You'd write your notes naturally with a stylus, and the Newton would convert them into digital text. Apple's marketing machine touted this as amazing, seamless technology. This is where the grand technological vision met the harsh reality of early 90 seconds engineering. It resulted in a monumental, headline-grabbing fail. The handwriting recognition software, despite years of development and millions in investment, simply wasn't ready for prime time. It was inconsistent, unreliable, and frustratingly slow. If you had neat, perfect block printing, it might work passably. But if you had even slightly messy cursive or rushed your writing, the results were often comical and completely unintelligible. The device would often interpret a simple sentence like, "Meet me at noon," into something bizarre. You might end up with "AT at meet at Boone." It was an absolute disaster for usability. The most famous, and perhaps most damaging, moment came in popular culture. The Newton was mercilessly mocked on the popular animated show The Simpsons. In a 1994 episode, a bully uses a message pad. The line, "Beat up Martin," is corrected by the Newton to the now infamous phrase, "Eat up Martha." This single joke, played out on primetime television, solidified the Newton's image in the public consciousness. It was seen not as a revolutionary device, but as an expensive, unreliable gimmick. The Newton instantly became the poster child for technology scandals related to overpromising and under-delivering. The handwriting feature alone was enough to sink the whole project. Beyond the functional fail of the handwriting, 2 other factors cemented the Newton's place as a historical technical disaster. These were price and timing, huge factors in any tech product launch. Let's talk about the price tag first. The MessagePad 100 launched with a terrifying sticker price, $699. This was not a small investment. Adjusting for inflation, that's well over $1,400 today. Think about that for a moment. $1,400 for a device that was essentially a digital notepad that struggled to read your own writing. This price point was simply prohibitive for the average consumer. Early adopters shelled out a huge amount of cash for a frustrating experience they couldn't justify. This was not a true consumer electronics product. It was an expensive executive toy that failed to execute its core, expensive function. Next, let's look at the problem of timing. Apple was simply too early. They were trying to create a category that the market wasn't ready for. The necessary underlying technology wasn't mature enough to support their vision. The hardware was big and bulky, and the battery life was notoriously poor even for a sunset product. Furthermore, the problem the Newton was trying to solve was not a critical pain point yet. Email wasn't fully mainstream, and the internet was still emerging into public consciousness. People were perfectly fine with their paper organizers and desktop calendars. They had no compelling, immediate need for an unreliable PDA. The smartphone, the device that actually solved the PDA problem perfectly, was still over a decade away. Apple had the right vision, the handheld personal computer, but they arrived at the party a decade too soon with a flawed prototype. They had the future in their hands, but they couldn't make it work reliably. Apple, to their credit, didn't give up immediately on the Newton. They realized the flaws and desperately tried to release several iterations. They were essentially creating a series of sunset products within the Newton line, hoping to fix the core issues before it was too late. They released the MessagePad 110, 120, and 130 versions. These attempted to refine the design, make it slightly slimmer, and crucially, improve the battery life and handwriting recognition. They saw minor incremental improvements with each version. However, the fundamental flaw in the recognition software and the high price point remained too great to overcome. Then came a brief, beautiful diversion. The eMate 300 inches 1997. This was a clamshell laptop version of the Newton OS, specifically built for the education market. It was colorful, durable, and actually quite beloved by the schools that used it. It's often cited as the best Newton product ever released, but it was too little, too late to save the brand. The damage had been done by the initial MessagePad. The final best versions were the MessagePad 2000 and 2100. These featured the fastest processor the line had seen, and finally, a handwriting recognition system that was actually usable. This usability was thanks to a complete rewrite of the software from the ground up. These were the PDAs the Newton should have been in 1993. But by 1997, the landscape had changed irrevocably. Cheaper, simpler, and more effective PDAs were already dominating the market. Competitors like the Palm Pilot didn't bother with expensive, unreliable handwriting. Instead, they used the simple, reliable graffiti stroke-based input. Palm products were affordable, effective, and reliable. The moment for the Newton had definitively passed. The Newton was now a dying platform, a major financial drain, and a lingering embarrassment for Apple. It was ready for its final act. The Apple Newton story comes to a dramatic close with the return of a certain visionary. In 1997, Steve Jobs returned to the CEO chair at Apple. And Steve Jobs was not sentimental about past mistakes. Jobs was famous for his laser focus on simplicity, quality, and the less is more philosophy. The Newton was the exact opposite of that philosophy. It was complicated, clunky, and most importantly, it was a symbol of the John Sculley era Apple, the Apple that had lost its way. In February 1998, Jobs did what he did best. He took an axe to the product line. He famously killed many projects, but the Newton was one of the highest profile casualties. Jobs is reported to have personally disliked the device and, of course, its infamous handwriting feature. He saw it as a technological dead end. With a single, decisive stroke, the entire Newton platform was shut down forever. The personal digital assistant, a name Apple created, was declared a failure by the company that launched it. The Newton, a project of immense technical complexity and cost, was officially relegated to the history books. It was cemented forever as one of the great technology scandals of the 90 seconds. So, What can we take away from this historical technical disaster? The story of the Newton isn't just a tale of failure. It's a crucial lesson in product development and market strategy. Lesson 1. Execution trumps ambition, especially regarding core features. The Newton failed because its core feature handwriting recognition was a spectacular failure. It didn't matter how ambitious the vision was if the basic user experience was a miserable, frustrating mess. If your product relies on a single technological leap, that leap must land perfectly. If it doesn't, your product becomes a joke, as Eat Up Martha proved forever. You cannot afford to fail on your main selling point. Lesson 2. Timing is everything in technology. Apple was right about the future, that we'd all carry powerful computers in our pockets. They were just right too soon. They tried to force a product into a market that lacked the necessary infrastructure and the underlying mature component technology. A groundbreaking idea with poor timing is simply a prototype for a future company to perfect. Lesson 3. The importance of simplicity. The Palm lesson. The Newton was a complex, multi-layered machine, whereas the Palm Pilot was focused, simple, and cheap. The market ultimately chose reliable simplicity over flawed complexity. This lesson is one that Steve Jobs took to heart and perfectly executed with the iPod and, later, the iPhone. The iPhone didn't use a stylus or handwriting recognition. It used the most natural input device of all, your finger. Despite its fate as a sunset product and a failure, the Newton left a profound, unseen triumph. The ARM processor, developed for the Newton, is now the core architecture for virtually every smartphone and tablet on the planet. The very concept of the PDA and the development work put into Newton OS, the integrated apps, the touch interface directly influenced the people and technology that would eventually create the iPhone. The Newton was the necessary $100 million mistake for Apple. It was the failed experiment that showed them exactly what not to do. This failure forced them to learn the vital lessons of focus, simplicity, and perfect execution. The failure of the Apple Newton was, in many ways, the first step on the road to the success of the iPhone. So there you have it. The Apple Newton, a historical technical disaster that cost a fortune, launched with an embarrassing feature, and was mercilessly ridiculed on The Simpsons. It was a classic tech fail. But remember, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone. The Newton might be gone, but its spirit and its processor live on in your pocket right now. What do you think? Were you one of the brave or foolish souls who bought a message pad back in '93? Let us know your worst Eat Up Martha moments in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Tech Fails for more deep dives into the biggest technology scandals and colossal product blunders in history. We'll see you next time.